If you're anything like me, when you're excited for a game, you're really excited, and you're just anxious for anything to help quench your thirst until you can finally start playing it. For me, that means finding every possible YouTube video containing game footage, or someone's opinion on the game, or even an hour-long discussion if I'm lucky. And that's been the case with Immortals Fenyx Rising. I've been super hyped for this game. I don't personally feel like it's going to blow anyone's minds. I don't think it's going to outperform Breath of the Wild, which is one of my favorite games of all time. But I'm excited to try it out. I'm excited to have a nice, chunky, open world game to sink some hours into this holiday. But recently, Ubisoft announced the DLC for this game. And it's going to be a season pass, just like a lot of games these days. And it's going to retail at $40, which is pretty pricey, but we'll get into that more later. Now, the reason I bring this all up is because I've seen a few opinions on this DLC. And, a lot of people that are excited for the game think it looks good. But I'm also hearing a lot of people say, wow, Ubisoft is just withholding tons of content and they're going to release it post-launch. Of course. And I kind of take issue with that because we know from about a month ago that the game went gold, which means that's kind of code for they've printed the discs for the retail versions, like the PS4 version, PS5 version, etc. And that means they're done with the base game. They're currently developing the DLC. And the other reason I take issue with this is because the DLC does not feel at all like content that's being withheld, and you'll see why when I read the breakdown. It's divided into 3 parts that'll be released consequentially. The first one is called A New God, and it's where the main character, Fenyx, will embark on a new adventure set in Olympus Palace, home of the gods. The journey will require Fenyx to overcome the trial of the Olympians, immersing players in beautifully crafted and challenging vaults built by the gods in order to join the inner circle of the Pantheon. So, this one I can partially understand. It's kind of like a big bonus quest added. You cannot go to Olympus in the game as far as I know, so this is kind of like a new area that they're adding to it. That kind of makes sense. Okay, yeah, maybe they had already been planning that and they're like, well, we want to release this as DLC. Sure, that's fair. But then when you get to the next 2 parts, I'll read you the second one that's going to be released, the second part of the Season Pass. Myths of the Eastern Realm. Set in Chinese mythology, the game's second episode will introduce a new hero, Q, who sets out on a journey to save mortals in a new mystical land at the frontier of the sky and earth. Players will need to master Q's unique fighting style and abilities inspired by Chinese martial arts to defeat new enemies and monsters from Chinese mythology. So, it's essentially a brand new campaign. It's not set in ancient Greece, it's not on the Golden Isle. In fact, it takes place before the timeline of the main game. So, how exactly is that withholding content? It's basically a brand new adventure. It's basically a brand new game. And yeah, we don't know the full size of it. We don't know the scope. Maybe it's a very small thing. Maybe it's not very much. I mean, obviously, it's probably not going to be as big as the main game. But it's a brand new open world, and it's Chinese mythology, and it's new enemies. And again, we have to wait and see. We have to see what it looks like when it comes out. But I don't really feel like this jives with that idea of, oh, this was part of the game, and they're keeping it back from players behind a paywall, So, and then let's go to the last one, The Lost Gods. The third and final episode will feature top-down gameplay, all-new brawler combat, and a new hero, Ash, chosen by Fenyx to bring back the Lost Gods. The episode will take place on a new mysterious island where players will explore regions inspired by these lost gods to restore balance on Earth. Okay, so we're back in Greece. This is in the same world as the base game, but it's a brand new character, and it's a top-down perspective, like an isometric perspective. And if you're looking at the footage, you'll see what I mean by this. This is basically a brand new game, like a completely different style of game. And I'm very, very curious about this one because it looks really cool, and I'm kind of curious to see how they adapt elements from the main game into it, or if they're just basically just shifting the camera and the combat feels the same just from a top-down perspective. But I kind of doubt it. They're making it sound like this is something that they're building from the ground up. They're like, oh, this is a new style of game. This will continue the story but with a new character. And again, it's a completely different type of game. So basically, 2/3 of this DLC season pass is like brand new games. They're not really related to the base game. Like I said, the first one kind of is, but the latter two are more like smaller new games set in the same universe. So I'm really curious about these, and I'm really excited for these, but I just don't think that argument of this being, another cash grab for Ubisoft by, withholding stuff that they had planned in advance, I just don't think that holds water. I don't think that argument works. Now, granted, Ubisoft has done plenty of things that AAA companies tend to do when it comes to monetization. I do not think they're infallible. In fact, I don't even really like Ubisoft. I enjoyed Mario plus Rabbids. Starlink was kind of cool, but it didn't really hold my attention. And that's pretty much it. I don't really care for Assassin's Creed or most of their other IPs. So I don't think we can't criticize them or anything. I just think in this particular instance, this doesn't seem to be a bad thing. And I think the biggest comparison to make is with Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild had a season pass that was $20. And if anything, the hard mode and the heroes map and some of the items in the game, I would totally understand someone getting mad at that and being like, why isn't that in the base game? Why are they withholding that from me? And ironically, Nintendo also announced that season pass before Breath of the Wild even came out. And that's what this game is doing, just around the same time, just a couple weeks before the game releases, which is another criticism I see a lot. They're already announcing DLC, this is garbage kind of thing. But people didn't seem to have a problem when they announced it for Breath of the Wild. Everyone was just excited to have more to look forward to after enjoying the game. And that's kind of how I view this batch of DLC for Immortals Fenyx Rising. The biggest drawback I see is the $40 price tag. That seems really steep. That's 2/3 of the price of the base game. And like I said, I kind of doubt that these will be the length of the base game. I don't see why they would. And I kind of feel like I need to play the base game before I decide on whether to jump in on the season pass. So even though I'm trying to defend it here, I'm not sure if I'm going to buy it yet. I don't know if it's worth it for me. I want to see how I feel about the main game, see if I enjoy it enough to want more content. And then I need to see, what's coming, if it's really going to be worth that price tag, because that's pretty steep. If these are basically 10-15 hour campaigns for the second and third one, that seems totally worth it to me. That's basically $20 each for those two, and you get all the bonus, the first batch of the bonus quest, and they said there's a lot of daily challenges they're adding in too. So yeah, I just felt like putting this out because I figure if there's people thinking about Immortals Fenyx Rising, they're probably looking for videos like mine discussing it. And I just wanted to put my opinion out there for this DLC batch and address some of the criticisms I've been seeing. But I'd be really curious what you think, so please let me know.